Welcome to Healing from Grief and Loss, where top experts guide you on your journey to find strength, comfort, and joy again. I'm Andrea, your host, and on today's show, I have the delightful Christy Wopat. Thank you, Christy, for joining us. I'm so happy that you're here.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So Christy is a busy mom, of course, and a wife. She's also a teacher, a writer, and a motivational speaker. And she has quite the story to tell. Christy, would you share your story with my audience today?
Absolutely. So my story of grief comes from what we call, I guess, infant loss. So in 2009, I got pregnant after struggling for 2 years to get pregnant. And I found out very quickly I was pregnant with twins. Everybody was so excited. We were daydreaming. I had a perfect ultrasound at 20 weeks and found out I was having a boy and a girl. And then a few weeks later, suddenly my water broke and it was terrifying and I was rushed to the hospital. But I ended up staying pregnant for a while. And at 24 weeks, Aidan and Sophie were born, but they both unfortunately passed away. They were just too little and their lungs couldn't keep up. And I immediately just had this newfound sense of grief and what it is and what it means. And my whole life was changed in that moment in so many different ways. But the biggest change would be just that I felt this tremendous sense of loss that I felt like no one else understood. And so that's where my background comes in, is I started really trying to understand what grief is and how do I navigate it.
Yes, that must have been such a painful time in your life. So what sort of got you to that healing place? Like what after that unfortunate time in your life, what got you out of bed and what kept you moving forward?
So, well, I'm a very type A person. I'm an elementary school teacher. You know, I'm the person that like highlights and stamps and organizes. And I felt such a loss of control because I didn't have any action steps to take. I didn't know if I could make a to-do list of like how to survive grief. There was nothing that I felt like I couldn't, like I was stuck and there was nothing I could do. And so I did kind of what I always do, which is to go to the library. And I got every book on infant loss that I could find, and they were all horrible, sadly, just because like I could either find books that were sort of written by professionals about the stages of grief, which if you've talked to anybody who's grieved a loss, like the stages are a joke, you know, like it's helpful to know that it is a stage, but they certainly don't go in order. Like there's that, there's an infographic on Facebook that goes around and it's like, grief is supposed to be like this, but my grief is like, you know, a bunch of scribbles. So they were either that, which wasn't very helpful to me, or they were really sort of like faith-based about healing, which was good for me later. But in the beginning, I was like, no, I am angry. I am mad and I am raging against the world right now. And this is not working for me. So I sought out a grief counselor, like a lot of us do, and I asked for action steps. And that helped a little. But what really helped for me, there were two basic things. One is I wrote everything out. And I don't think that you have to be a writer in order to do that. I think that it doesn't matter about your grammar or your spelling or any of that. I can remember just barely being able to see the screen of the computer because I was crying so hard, just writing it out. Like sometimes I would write the sentence, "This is not fair," over and over and over again, because that was like, I was so angry. This wasn't fair. Why did this happen to me? And so writing it out felt good for me. So writing was one thing. And then the second thing, which is the topic of my first book, is that I found other people who were going through the same thing as I was. And I just think there's such a power in connection with people who have experienced similar things to you. And so even back in 2009, the internet was a very different place than it is now. And I started blogging and met women from all over the world who were going through the same thing that I was going through. And it was so simple. It was so simple, but so powerful. So I would say, whenever I see anybody, they pretend like my babies were not even born. And someone would comment and say, "Sophie and Aidan were beautiful." Just like hearing their names being said brought me so much peace. And connecting with these moms who were like, "Oh yeah, same here." That was so incredibly healing for me to know that I was not alone. So those are my two big things. Write it out. And if you can, find somebody who is walking that journey with you. And my people were not in real life either. It was very virtual, and the internet can be an amazing place for that.
Right. Well, that's pretty amazing. Definitely connecting with others that have been through the same thing is such a positive feeling to have when you're going through so much negative stuff. So how do you continue the bonds with Sophie and Aidan?
How do I continue what?
The bonds.
The bonds.
Yes.
So in my life, I have made it a goal to remember and honor the memory of Sophie and Aidan in everything that I do. So if you walk into my house, it may not be very apparent right away, but there are pieces of Sophie and Aidan all over my house. If you ask my two living children who the members of our family are, they will mention Sophie and Aidan. And when they do projects at school with their family, they mention that they have a brother and sister who died. I have different sort of like, I don't know if ritual is the right word, but every once in a while I write them letters and just set them in their memory box so that I can get whatever it is off my chest. Sometimes I just feel like saying like, today I wonder what you would have been like at 11 years old during this coronavirus. What would have been like if we had 4 kids who were here instead of 2. So I write letters. And then, I write books. So my second book was just released, and it's a picture book that talks about how it's okay to remember your family member after they're gone. In my family and in my husband's family, it was very like taboo to talk about them after they died. Like it was this hidden thing that never happened, and we're just going to forget about it and move on. And I was told by so many people to like buck up and move on. But I'm really stubborn. And so I kind of hunkered down and said, yeah, I'm going to move forward, but I'm not going to move on from the memory of my kids. And, you know, I will say that I know other moms who don't do that, who are like, you know what, their memory is tucked in my heart and I don't talk about it with anyone. And that's just how I roll. And I would like them to at least try, because I think it's helpful. But everybody deals with it differently. That's kind of the interesting thing about grief is you could take someone who had the exact same situation as I did, who struggled with infertility, got pregnant with twins. You could take the exact same like circumstances and they would still handle their grief differently. And I was lucky to have a really supportive husband and to read a book about how men and women grieve differently, which kind of shaped my relationship with my husband after that. But my job for Sophie and Aidan is to continue being their mom in the practical ways that I can. And so they're just they're a part of our life. Anyone who is friends with me knows about Sophie and Aidan, mentions Sophie and Aidan, and remembers them with me.
Wow. That is so beautiful. My goodness. Thank you for sharing that. So if you could give my audience 3 tips on finding joy again, what would you say to them?
First, I would say that you have permission to feel joy again. I think a lot of hurting people feel almost guilty for feeling happiness when their loved one is no longer there. And it took me a long time to get past that, but you absolutely have permission and you should seek joy. So that's my first tip. My second tip would be to try not to spend time trying to get back to who you were before the loss happened. Because I'm not convinced that that it's ever possible to go back. It's so overused right now, I think, but people talk about the new normal, right? But what I mean by that is you're never going to go back to the person that you were before, but that doesn't mean that you can't be happy again. So I would say try to find the new things that bring you joy and passion, and incorporate them with the things that you had before. And then the third tip would be to reach out, to talk, to write, to share, to get over that scared feeling if you want to, and go try a grief group or a counselor, or find a forum on the internet, or just anything you can do to talk it out. Because our friends that don't understand grief, that haven't lived through a very traumatic or big loss like we have, they're not that fun to talk to, because they just get annoyed, because they're like, okay, you said that already. I heard you say that this is unfair. But when you're grieving, you just need to say it over and over and over. And I think you just need someone who understands that to be able to listen and say, you're right, it's not fair. You're right. Yep, I got you.
Yeah. Awesome. Those are fabulous tips. Thank you. Love it. So I want you to share your books with us. Tell us a little bit about your first one and your recently published second one. If you want to share a little bit about those.
Okay. So this book came out in March of 2018. It is called Almost a Mother: Love, Loss, and Finding Your People When Your Baby Dies. The first half of this book is so this is a memoir, like it's narrative nonfiction. And the first half of this book is me basically pouring my guts out about how impossible it feels to grieve. I write a lot about how people treated me and the things that they said that they meant in goodwill, but that hurt me to the core. I write about, the dumb things people say and the platitudes. And I wanted this book to be raw and uncut. So I was completely honest. Like, I talk about the time that the first time I went back to Target and I saw a pregnant woman, like, I literally wanted to kick her, and in a mean way. Like, I wanted to kick her. And, like, at the time I felt completely insane. But the more I learn, the more I realize that that's so completely normal when you're grieving. Like, those feelings of bitterness and jealousy and anger are normal, but they eventually go away. And so that's what the first half of this book is about, is me just really saying, like, and then I did this, and then I felt this, and you couldn't make me happy because of this. And then the second book is about meeting my best friend, Bree, who lives in Los Angeles. We met on blogs, and then I flew to California to meet her in person.
Nice.
And so it's just about, like, how all these moms from all over the world connected. So that's Almost a Mother, Love, Loss, and Finding Your People When Your Baby Dies. And this is a book I am giving away a copy of.
Wow.
And then, yes, of course. And then my second book came out a few weeks ago, and this is called Always Ours. And this is an illustrated children's book. And it follows the story of these two little who are kind of unsure about what's going on in their house, but they know something's wrong, and their mom and dad are acting funny. And then their mom goes to the hospital to have their baby brother, and they find out that their baby brother has died. And so the girls go down this journey. They're also learning at school about how caterpillars turn into butterflies. And so in the end, they have this, the illustrations are so beautiful. I did not draw them. At the end, they have, like, their baby brother's name on their nightstand, and they release a butterfly in his name, and they say good night to him every night. And so it's really a picture book for families who have lost someone, that's really giving permission for families to honor and respect their loved one's memory after they're gone. This is my favorite picture.
So beautiful.
So that's called Always Ours, and it came out May 19th. So.
Wow. Well done.
Yeah, those are my books. Thank you.
Wow. Well done. Congrats on that. That's pretty exciting to have published that second book, and that's a great story. I'm definitely going to have to get a copy of that. And you're giving a copy of your first one.
Thank you.
To my audience. That's fantastic. Thank you so much. Wow.
Absolutely.
Well, before we go, is there anything else you want to share before we say goodbye?
I guess I just want to tell your audience that if they are looking for someone to connect with, or they need resources, or they just want someone to listen to their story, I am always happy to do that. Particularly if you know someone who's suffering from infant loss, if you send them my way, like, I'm happy to be a sounding board. And I get emails every day from people around the world who really just want someone to listen to their story. And so I'm sure you can find my email somewhere. It's just christywopat@gmail.com. But I'm here for you if you need somebody. So.
Oh, thank you. That's sweet. You're so sweet. I just love you. My goodness. Oh, Christy. Thank you so much for sharing. It's just been such a pleasure having you with us today. And my goodness, I'm excited to get your books, and we'll share the link after the video. And yes, just thank you again for sharing. You're such an inspiration.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. And I just want to thank my audience for tuning in. I hope something touched your soul today. I know it touched mine. I'm actually a little bit teary. So in the meantime, just be safe and be kind to yourself. And most importantly, remember you're not alone. And here's someone that we've just finished chatting with who's there for you. If you want to reach out to Christy, I'll have her email link too. And thank you again, Christy. Thank you to my audience. And have a beautiful day. And bye for now.